The galaxy was wide, filled with countless stars and countless worlds. For thousands of years, the Empire had ruled those stars. They did not always use weapons to win. They did not always burn cities or crush armies. Instead, they used something far more dangerous. They used rules, endless rules. On one planet after another, the story was the same. The Empire would arrive with fleets that blocked the skies. Then they would give orders, laws, and regulations. No one could move without their approval. No one could build without their permission. Freedom was erased, little by little, until nothing remained. And so, species after species fell. Proud warriors who once carried blades and guns were reduced to silence. Artists who once sang songs of freedom were forced to sing of obedience. The Empire had perfected the art of control. They had broken strong species, brilliant species, powerful species. And so when their fleets turned at last toward Earth, the Empire believed this would be easy. They expected humans to fall like the rest. They expected Earth to become just another star in their collection. The first day of contact was grand. The Empire sent great ships, silver and black. They glowed in the sky like dark suns. People of Earth looked upward in fear and wonder. The ships did not fire, they did not attack. Instead, they sent voices across every language. Their message was calm but heavy. People of Earth, you now belong to the Empire. They spoke of order, of rules, of peace through obedience. To the Empire, peace was not freedom. It was silence, controlled silence. World leaders gathered to meet them. The Empire sent envoys, tall and thin, their eyes glowing with cold light. They carried long books of rules. Each book was heavier than steel. Inside were thousands of regulations. Every word was a chain, every sentence was a prison. The envoys stood before humans and declared, "From this day, you will live by the laws of the Empire." They spoke with pride, with certainty, for they had done this to countless worlds before. No one had ever dared to refuse. But humans were strange. The envoys felt at the moment they walked into the great hall of Earth. Something about the air was different. Something about the eyes of the humans watching them. The Empire had seen fear in many eyes. They had seen anger, sadness, even despair. But in the eyes of humans, they saw something unusual. They saw amusement. As the envoys listed one rule after another. No ships may leave orbit without permission. No new weapons may be built without approval. No song, no book, no dream may spread without control. The humans did not cry, they did not scream. They smiled, some even chuckled under their breath. The sound was soft, but it spread like fire through the hall. The lead envoy stopped, confused. Never in the history of the Empire had a species laughed at the law. The envoy raised his glowing eyes and asked, "Do you not understand? These rules are the chains that will hold you. They are the walls that will contain you." The humans looked at one another. And then, one by one, they began to laugh louder. It was not the laugh of fools, not the laugh of madness. It was the laugh of defiance. The hall shook with it, echoing against the cold walls. The envoys grew angry, their voices sharp. "You dare laugh at the Empire? You dare mock the law?" But the humans did not stop. Their laughter was strange, powerful, alive. It was the sound of a species that refused to kneel. The Empire had seen fear, but never this. They had seen silence, but never laughter. And in that moment, the seeds of rebellion were planted. For if rules were chains, then laughter was the hammer that could break them. And behind that laughter, waiting in silence, was steel. The Empire thought Earth would be easy, but they had just discovered a truth that no law could erase. Humans were not like the others, and their answer would not be silence. It would be laughter. It would be steel. The envoys of the Empire believed laughter was only a mistake. They thought humans laughed because they were nervous. They thought it was a weakness, not strength. So they continued their speech, their voices sharp and cold. The leader of the envoys raised the great book of rules. The book opened with a sound like chains breaking stone. Inside were countless laws, written in 1,000 alien languages. Now, Earth would be added to those words. The envoy declared, "From this day forward, your skies are ours. No ship may rise without permission of the Empire." A murmur went through the human leaders. Some frowned, some whispered, some clenched their fists. But they did not bow. The envoy continued, "No new weapons will be built. No engines of war will be made. For only the Empire decides who carries power. Again, the humans listened, but not a single head bent in obedience. Their silence was louder than any cry. The list of rules went on. No story may be told without approval. No song may be sung unless it honors the Empire. No dream may be pursued unless it serves the throne. The Empire's envoys had spoken these rules on dozens of worlds. And on dozens of worlds, the people had bowed. But here, on Earth, the reaction was different. There was still that spark in their eyes. That spark of amusement, as if the words themselves were a joke. The envoys grew restless. The humans should have been afraid. The humans should have begged for mercy. Instead, they exchanged glances like children hiding a secret. Some even smirked. The envoy slammed the book shut. You will obey these rules, or you will be punished. The Empire is eternal. The Empire always wins. But humans had already begun to whisper to one another. Not in fear, but in quiet rebellion. In back rooms, in dark corners, in hidden places. They repeated the rules with mocking voices. They laughed at the law that said no ships could fly. They laughed at the law that said no story could be told. And they laughed even harder at the idea that their dreams could be chained. For laughter had always been a part of humanity. Laughter in war, laughter in sorrow. Even in the darkest hours of history, humans had laughed. And now, that same laughter became a weapon, a spark that the Empire could not understand. In the weeks that followed, the Empire stationed its soldiers on Earth. Tall machines walked the streets of cities. Drones hovered in the skies. And yet, humans lived as though the Empire was only a passing storm. They obeyed the rules on the surface. But beneath the surface, they broke them with joy. Young people painted forbidden murals on the walls at night. Musicians played songs that mocked the Empire in secret clubs. Writers told stories that slipped past the censors. And engineers began to dream of ships built far from watchful eyes. The Empire thought it was winning. They saw humans going to work, smiling, speaking politely. They thought obedience had already taken root. But they did not understand the human smile. A smile could mean peace, but it could also mean rebellion. Behind every polite word, there was a hidden joke. Behind every nod, there was defiance waiting. One day, an envoy walked into a marketplace. He saw children playing with sticks as if they were swords. He told them, "No child may play war games, for only the Empire protects you." The children looked at him with wide eyes. Then one of them laughed and said, "But who protects the Empire from us?" The envoy froze. For the first time, he felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, not anger, but doubt. The laughter of one child had shaken the certainty of an empire. And so, in silence, the seeds of rebellion grew stronger. The Empire had chained many worlds, but Earth was proving different. For while rules could bind hands and silence voices, they could never stop the human spirit. And that spirit was now sharpening itself, not only with laughter, but with steel. The envoys of the Empire returned to their ships with anger. They reported to their masters that humans were strange. They followed the rules on the surface, yet mocked them in secret. They obeyed in public, yet laughed in private. The Empire did not understand this behavior. To them, rules were sacred, unbreakable, absolute. But to humans, rules were things to be questioned. And laughter was their answer to control. The Empire tried harder. They built new offices in the cities. They placed guards at every port. They demanded reports from every human leader. Yet the more they tightened their grip, the more the humans slipped away. Teachers joked about forbidden books. Workers teased about empire breaks when they rested. Even soldiers in Earth's armies shared quiet smiles when no one watched. It was not open rebellion yet, but it was something far more dangerous. It was spirit, unbroken and alive. The Empire had seen fear before. But this thing, this laughter, they could not crush it. One commander told his superior, "These humans, they laugh even when punished. They laugh when they lose. They laugh when they bleed." The superior dismissed it, saying, "Laughter is nothing. Steel wins wars, not sound." But he was wrong. For on Earth, laughter was already forging steel. In hidden places, humans began to work. Engineers gathered in old warehouses and underground tunnels. They shared designs with hushed voices. They built machines piece by piece. Not grand ships yet, but small things, small tests. Engines that roared quietly in the night. Weapons disguised as tools. Circuits hidden in toys and radios. Every invention was masked with humor. Every plan covered by a joke. So when the Empire's spies came looking, they saw only comedy. And they reported back. Humans waste their time laughing. They are no threat. But the truth was different. The laughter was not weakness, it was armor. It was the sound that covered the hammer striking steel. It was the voice that hid the fire of rebellion. Even in their homes, families whispered forbidden jokes. A father told his son, "If the Empire says we cannot dream, then we must dream louder." And the boy laughed. The sound carried through the night like a spark in the dark. The envoys tried once more to demand silence. They gathered the leaders of Earth and said, "You are breaking the law with your humor. Mockery is forbidden. Obedience is required." But the humans only smiled. One leader stood and asked, "Tell me, how many rules has the Empire made?" The envoy answered, 10,000 rules, and more to come." The leader's smile grew wider. "Then we will need 10,000 jokes. And more to come." The hall erupted in laughter again. Laughter that shook the walls. Laughter that made the envoy's hands tremble. The Empire had no answer to this. Their books of law did not teach them how to fight humor. Their soldiers did not train to face smiles. And their fleets did not carry weapons against jokes. For the first time in centuries, the Empire felt uneasy. They had faced armies, they had crushed rebels. But this mocking, fearless sound, it was different. It was human, and it was spreading faster than they could control. And so the Empire decided, if laughter could not be stopped with laws, then perhaps it could be stopped with punishment. They began to plan harsher actions. They prepared to test Earth's spirit with fear. But even as they planned, humanity was preparing too, not with fear, but with laughter, and with steel waiting just beneath it. The Empire believed fear was stronger than laughter. They had used it on 100 worlds. They thought Earth would finally bend if pain replaced rules. So they sent soldiers into the streets, tall armored giants with glowing weapons. They marched through cities, through towns, their footsteps heavy, their voices cold. They announced curfews, punishments, and silence. At first, the humans seemed to obey. Shops closed early, lights dimmed at night. Families stayed indoors, whispering softly. The Empire thought victory was close. They thought the spark had been smothered. But in the silence of those nights, rebellion was being born. Hidden voices spoke louder when doors were shut. In basements, in barns, in cellars beneath the earth, humans gathered to talk, to plan. Every laugh was sharper now. Not just humor, but defiance. Artists painted secret murals on ruined walls. Images of humans standing tall, laughing at the Empire. The soldiers tried to erase them. But by the next morning, more paintings appeared. Music rose in secret halls. Songs that mocked the Empire's rules spread through whispers. Even when caught, the singers laughed as they were dragged away. And children repeated the forbidden tunes in the streets. No punishment could silence the sound. The Empire grew harsher. They banned gatherings larger than 3 people. They shut down schools and theaters. They even outlawed jokes themselves. One soldier barked at a farmer. "Laughter is a crime." The farmer only smirked and said, "Then I am guilty forever." Even as the soldier struck him, the crowd around him chuckled. The spark was spreading, and sparks always find fire. In hidden places, engineers worked on machines of steel. Engines hummed quietly in underground tunnels. Wings of war were being shaped in secret caves. Old factories that once made cars now made weapons. Scrap metal became armor. Old rockets became missiles. Every clang of the hammer was hidden behind a laugh. So when the Empire's spies reported back, they told their leaders, "Humans waste their time with jokes and tricks. There is no true danger." But they were blind. The danger was growing stronger every day. A turning point came in a small town. An officer of the Empire tried to silence a storyteller. The storyteller was an old woman. She sat before children, telling tales of freedom. The officer shouted, "These stories are banned. Only the Empire decides what can be told." The old woman looked into his cold eyes, and she laughed. Her laugh was soft but unbroken. The children laughed with her, and the townspeople joined, until the whole square was filled with the sound. The officer shouted for silence, but the laughter only grew. He fired his weapon into the air. Still they laughed. And that day, the Empire realized it was not facing just a people. It was facing a storm. From that town, rebellion spread faster. Smugglers carried parts across borders. Pilots flew small crafts hidden from the Empire's sight. Scientists wrote codes inside jokes and riddles. Rebels passed messages by pretending to tell funny stories. And always, behind the humor, there was steel. Blades sharpened in secret. Guns forged in shadows. Engines tested where no soldier could see. The Empire had come with rules. Then they tried fear. But both had failed. Because humans had found their answer. Every act of rebellion was marked with laughter. Every plan was carried by humor. And every joke carried the weight of steel. The spark was no longer just a spark. It was fire. And fire cannot be chained. The Empire thought laughter was noise. They thought it would fade with time. But while they watched the streets, they missed what was happening underground. Steel was awakening. Beneath mountains, in tunnels carved from rock. Engines rumbled in secret. Old factories were reborn. Not for cars, not for farming machines, but for ships and weapons. Every hammer strike echoed like a heartbeat. Every spark of fire was a promise of war. And every design was hidden under the cover of a joke. The Empire's soldiers patrolled the cities above. But below their feet, humans worked without rest. Engineers welded frames for starships. Pilots trained in silence. Mechanics built armor from scraps of forgotten wars. Each man and woman carried laughter on their lips. So if questioned, they looked harmless. But in truth, they carried rebellion in their hands. Ships began to take shape. First small, fast crafts, built from stolen parts, painted in secret colors. Engines that screamed like thunder when tested at night. One test flight lit the sky over the ocean. An Empire patrol saw the flash. But by the time they arrived, nothing remained but waves. The humans had hidden the craft in a cave, and they laughed at the soldiers' confusion. Weapons too were born. Rifles made from old pipes and wires. Blades hidden inside farming tools. Missiles disguised as fuel containers. The Empire searched, but found only jokes. One officer burst into a workshop. He saw men sitting around a table, laughing. They showed him a toy plane made of wood. He left, convinced humans were foolish. Yet in the room behind them, a real fighter ship waited, half complete. The laughter spread to the soldiers of Earth. Men and women once sworn to peace now trained in secret. They wore smiles even in the hardest drills. They called their practice games. But each game sharpened them into warriors. Old generals shared hidden maps. Young recruits whispered battle plans. And when they joked, their eyes burned with fire. The Empire remained blind. Their reports claimed, humans are disorganized. They spend their energy on humor. They are not preparing for war. But the truth was different. The humor was the shield. The steel was the sword. And the sword was almost ready. One night, in a cavern deep beneath the Arctic ice, the first human warship was completed. It was not grand, not yet. But it was sharp, strong, alive. Engines pulsed, weapons hummed. Its steel frame reflected the firelight of the builders. The men and women who made it cheered, not with cries of fear, but with laughter that shook the cavern walls. The ship was named Freedom's Joke, for it had been built under the cover of humor, and it would fly as humanity's first answer to the Empire. Word spread in whispers. Other hidden bases rushed to finish their ships. Oceans hid submarines that were no longer submarines. Mountains concealed hangars full of rising wings, and deserts swallowed engines that thundered in silence. The earth was alive with secret fire. The Empire saw only smiles. But behind those smiles, steel was awakening. The time was coming. The chains of rules were cracking. The fire of rebellion was burning. And the steel of humanity was ready to roar. The Empire believed the humans had finally settled. Reports from their envoys said Earth was quiet. Factories worked, people smiled, soldiers obeyed. On the surface, all seemed calm. But beneath that calm, a storm was waiting. The Empire had grown impatient. They wanted proof of obedience. So they sent a fleet into Earth's orbit. Dark ships blotted out the stars. Engines roared like thunder. Their message was clear. Submit or suffer. In the great cities of Earth, fear spread for a moment. Families gathered, watching the skies. Children pointed at the massive warships. But their parents whispered to them, "Do not fear. This day has been waiting." On the ground, Empire soldiers marched through the streets. Their metal boots struck the pavement. Their weapons glowed in their hands. They shouted orders. All humans inside. All humans silent. But silence was not what they received. From windows and rooftops, laughter rose. Soft at first, then louder, until it echoed through every street. The commander of the Empire fleet grew angry. He broadcast his voice across Earth. You mock us even now? We will burn your cities. We will break your world. But his words only met with more laughter. Because at that very moment, humanity was ready. From the mountains came the first roar. Cavern doors opened, and hidden warships rose. Engines burned like suns as they tore into the skies. From the oceans came the second wave. Submarines that were not submarines split the waters. Missiles shot into the air like fire arrows. From the deserts, from the ice, from the forests, steel wings unfolded. Engines howled, and the earth revealed what it had been hiding. The humans had named this day long before it arrived. They called it the Day of Defiance. It was the day when laughter would meet steel, and steel would meet the Empire. The first battle began over the Pacific. Empire ships descended, firing beams of light. But human fighters darted between them like wasps. Small, fast, unpredictable. Their laughter carried through open channels. Pilots joked with one another as they fired. Did you see that shot? The Empire can't even aim. Explosions lit the skies as the first enemy cruiser fell. In the cities below, people sang. They sang loud enough to drown out the noise of war. Songs of freedom, songs of rebellion. Even as bombs shook the ground, the voices did not stop. Children clapped their hands. Elders raised their fists. The soldiers of the Empire could not silence them. On the battlefield, the Empire was confused. They had expected humans to cry. They had expected fear and chaos. Instead, they faced warriors who laughed as they fought, who joked as they fired, who smiled even in the fire of battle. It unsettled them. It weakened them, because no rule, no law, no chain could explain it. One human ship cut through the enemy line. Its name painted boldly across its steel, Freedom's Joke. The same ship built in the Arctic caves. It fired a barrage that crippled an Empire destroyer, and its captain laughed into the comms. Tell the Empire, this is only the beginning. The Day of Defiance raged across the skies, and for the first time in centuries, the Empire's fleets trembled, because a new truth had been born in fire. Earth was not silent. Earth was not broken. Earth was laughing, and with every laugh came steel. The Empire had never known fear. They had ruled for centuries with rules and fire. But on the Day of Defiance, Earth changed everything. The humans fought not with silence, not with surrender, but with laughter and steel. The battle spread across the skies. Empire warships rained fire, but human fleets danced between them. Fast, wild, unpredictable. Their ships were smaller, weaker. Yet the humans turned every weakness into strength. They laughed through the static of their comms. They joked even when outnumbered. Careful, don't scratch their shiny paint. Another pilot shouted, I'll bring one down. Then we'll see if their rules survive the crash. Explosions lit the heavens. The first wave of Empire ships broke apart. Fragments burned as they fell into the oceans. For the first time in living memory, the Empire lost ground. On Earth below, the people did not hide. They stood in the streets. They sang louder than the cannons. They painted symbols of rebellion on broken walls. Children laughed as soldiers marched past. Old men told jokes about the Empire's pride. The spirit of humanity rose higher with every blast. The Empire commander tried to bring order. He shouted commands across the fleet. Crush them, burn their cities, silence their laughter. But even his own soldiers felt doubt. For every time a human ship struck, the pilots laughed. Every time an Empire cruiser fell, the humans cheered, and that sound carried through the void like thunder. At the center of the fight, Freedom's Joke charged forward. Its cannons fired again and again, cutting into the heart of the Empire line. The ship should have fallen. It was outgunned, outnumbered. But its crew laughed even as the hull shook. They sang as sparks rained inside the bridge. They smiled as alarms screamed. And with one final barrage, they tore down the Empire flagship. The great beast of steel exploded into fire and silence. The galaxy watched. Other worlds under the Empire's chains saw the signal. They saw Earth, small and young, standing against the eternal Empire, and winning, not with fear, but with something the Empire could never understand. Laughter. When the smoke cleared, the skies above Earth belonged not to the Empire, but to humanity. The surviving Empire ships limped away, their commanders stunned into silence. And for the first time in history, the Empire retreated. On the ground, the people celebrated. They sang, they danced, they laughed until the night shook. Every street was alive with joy. Every voice carried the same message. We are free. We will never bow. The lesson spread far beyond Earth, to every world still chained. The Empire's greatest weapon was not fire. It was rules. And Earth had proven rules could be broken. That laughter could cut chains. That steel could shatter thrones. And so, the galaxy learned a new truth that day. You cannot rule Earth with laws. You cannot silence them with fear. For humanity answers only in two ways. With laughter and with steel.